and your dog. You've been more trouble to me than you're worth, one way and another.
Margaret Hamilton's portrayal of the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz is iconic, but few know about the twisted ordeal she went through on set. Born in 1902 in Cleveland, Ohio, Hamilton came from modest beginnings. In her adulthood, she could terrify children just by walking down the street, but ironically, children were her first fans. As a member of the Junior League of Cleveland, she combined her love for entertaining with a passion for community work, particularly with kids. She acted in children's theatre and honed her skills for a future on the big screen. After attending college in Boston, she became a teacher in New York. Teaching kids became a lifelong passion of hers, and one that carried onto the stage with her. By the time she was 27, Hamilton couldn't wait any longer. She simply had to pursue her dream of acting. So, on her birthday in 1929, she took to the stage at the Cleveland Playhouse and delivered a programme of heart-rending songs. In 1931, Hamilton married the only man who would ever manage to capture her heart, Paul Boynton Meserve, but she was torn between two worlds. Her heart belonged equally to the stage and the spotlight, and she pursued her acting ambitions to the detriment of her new marriage. Then a funny stroke of fate catapulted her to the place she always dreamed of going. Her first big break came when she accompanied a friend to audition for the 1932 Broadway play Another Language. Surprisingly, she ended up nabbing a role herself, that of Helen Hallam, a sharp-tongued wife. Another Language marked Hamilton's Broadway debut, and her big screen debut. The unassuming play turned out to be a vehicle for the unassuming schoolteacher with big dreams. The play was such a hit on Broadway that it captured Hollywood's attention, and Hamilton set off for Tinseltown when MGM turned the play into a 1933 film. Margaret arrived in Hollywood just as the talkies were taking over, and her perfect diction, thanks to her stage acting background, gave her a distinct advantage. Unlike many actors of her time, she never signed a studio contract and worked as a free agent. She commanded an impressive $1,000 a week for her work, but it came at a cost. Just as her career was kicking into hyperdrive, her marriage disintegrated around her, eventually ending in divorce in 1938. She made the difficult decision to raise her son, Hamilton Meserve, all on her own. It would not be easy. Even though Hamilton found herself in the belly of the fame beast, she worked hard to ensure her son had a normal upbringing. He later recalled how his mother protected him from the pressures of Hollywood, especially after witnessing what her close friend Judy Garland would endure as a child star. One day, Margaret received a phone call from her agent that would change her life forever, and not necessarily for the better. Hamilton had been obsessed with The Wizard of Oz since the age of 4. For the sweet-hearted, child-loving schoolteacher turned actress, the part of Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, seemed like a perfect fit. But she was somewhat shocked to hear she'd be playing the Wicked Witch of the West.
What is it? And he said, well, the witch. And I said, the witch? And he said, yes, what else?
She wasn't exactly clicking her heels together over the role, but she couldn't exactly walk away from the project. She needed the money. Margaret Hamilton would go on to embody the Wicked Witch and make the role her own. As a single mother, she struggled to balance filming with taking care of her son. She bravely negotiated her working hours with the studio, eventually accepting a 5-week term just 3 days before filming began. In the end, she filmed for a total of 3 months. Frankly, she was lucky to make it off the set alive. Hamilton's version of the Wicked Witch of the West left audiences terrified, But behind the scenes, she was so kind-hearted that the rest of the film's cast struggled to be afraid of her when the cameras were rolling. Judy Garland in particular formed a lifelong bond with Hamilton and affectionately called her Maggie. In fact, their friendship was so close that Garland even showed her a special dress that she was planning to wear for her high school graduation. Hamilton's protective instincts for her son extended to her friends, particularly Garland. When MGM head Louis B. Mayer sent Garland on tour with Mickey Rooney, preventing her from wearing her graduation dress on stage, Hamilton was furious. She called Mayer directly to give him a piece of her mind, berating the powerful producer. Mayer couldn't complain though. Hamilton put everything into her performance. The scene where the Wicked Witch sets the Scarecrow's arm on fire required multiple takes to perfect. Hamilton allegedly needed 5 attempts to get the right level of menace. After the final take, the dedicated actress reportedly fainted from exhaustion. She put everything she had into her portrayal of the Wicked Witch, but she might have put too much into it. Her performance was so terrifying that MGM decided to cut entire scenes where they deemed her too scary for younger audiences. Very much unlike the Wicked Witch she portrayed on screen, Hamilton loved animals. Hamilton didn't just see the Wicked Witch as pure evil. In her eyes, the witch was a sad and frustrated woman who never got what she wanted, leading to a life of bitterness. This nuanced view of the character eventually inspired later works, like the novel and musical Wicked, which portrayed the witch as a misunderstood protagonist. Not everyone shared her more sympathetic view of the witch, namely kids. Her neighbour once recounted how her nephew refused to meet Hamilton, even though he knew she was just an actress. He still feared she might be like her terrifying character in real life. And he wasn't the only one who couldn't see past the green makeup. Being a former schoolteacher who loved kids, Margaret Hamilton was always wary of the impact her role in The Wizard of Oz had on the youngest audience members. Her son once explained she was always afraid of the impact it had on kids. She was constantly trying to reassure children that this was make-believe. And she even enlisted some help.
How did she talk?
Well, she talked like this. It's very nice to see you.
In an attempt to soften her wicked image amongst children, Hamilton appeared on Mr. Rogers' Neighbourhood in 1975.
There. Well, there's your old friend, the Wicked Witch of the West.
In 1976, Hamilton reprised her role as the Wicked Witch in an episode of Sesame Street. The episode aired only once before the network pulled it from circulation. Angry parents had written in complaining that Hamilton was too frightening for their children. After a while, Margaret learned that it was best to simply embrace the wickedness. Throughout her career, she made subtle references to her iconic role.
Told ya. She's even got a broom.
In the 1970 film Brewster McCloud, her character Daphne Heap wears red slippers in a deliberate and cheeky nod to The Wizard of Oz. Even after her success in Hollywood, Margaret stayed committed to helping children and never lost sight of her humble beginnings as a schoolteacher. She founded a kindergarten in a Beverly Hills church and even served as the president of the local board of education. Hamilton's teaching days included some memorable moments, like the time she ordered a disruptive student to leave her class. Coincidentally, that student grew up to be William Wyndham, who later starred alongside her in the 1971 film Is There a Doctor in the House? It was a fitting bookend to her Hollywood career. Hamilton spent most of her life in Manhattan, enjoying her Gramercy Park apartment and the hustle and bustle of life in the big city. But in the summers, she liked to escape to Southport, Maine, to find peace and quiet. This small coastal retreat became her sanctuary, where she could unwind from the pressures of her Hollywood life. Once she heard that the government was selling off lighthouses in Maine, including one near her summer home, she saw an opportunity. But while visiting with her son and daughter-in-law, she set her sights on something bigger: Cape Island. She and her son cleaned out their savings accounts and bought the island, turning it into a family refuge. By this time, she was already in her 60s. Even though she was still working and often away filming a movie or TV show, she quickly became a beloved figure in her main community. Locals affectionately dubbed her summer retreat Witch's Island, though they knew her as anything but wicked. Hamilton made her final film appearance in 1982's Pardon Me for Living. After that, she retired to her island and lived without electricity, using kerosene lamps and stoves, and spending her days chopping wood and enjoying the solitude. It was a peaceful retirement, especially after all the wild adventures she'd been in on film sets, including some on The Wizard of Oz that had turned out to be downright harrowing. Hamilton's iconic scene where her Wicked Witch character disappears from Munchkin Land in a plume of red smoke and fire nearly ended in disaster. During the first take, the smoke appeared too early and Hamilton wasn't in position. On the second take, however, things went horribly wrong and nearly ended her career and could have ended her life. Based makeup heated up, causing second and third degree burns on her hands and face. Suffice to say, the producers went with the first take for the final cut. Hamilton's suffering didn't end when the flames went out. Removing her green makeup from her tender burns was no easy task. The makeup crew had to resort to using acetone, a strong solvent, to remove the copper-based paint from her freshly burned flesh. The process was excruciating. The burns from the accident were so bad that she had to take 6 weeks off to recover. But it's not like she was exactly eager to jump back on the proverbial broomstick and fly to the land of Oz. Margaret was nothing if not the consummate professional. Despite the severity of her injuries, she wasn't eager to get revenge on the studio. She didn't sue because she knew she would never work in the industry again. She did, however, make one demand before returning to the set: no more fireworks. The studio didn't exactly listen. Under Dorothy's skywriting scene, Danko was supposed to ride a pipe designed to look like the Wicked Witch's broomstick. Unfortunately, on the third take, the pipe exploded, leaving Danko, much like Hamilton, with severe burns, only worse. Medics rushed her to the hospital where she stayed for 11 days. The Wicked Witch of the West turned out to be a dangerous role to play. Danko's injuries from the explosion left her with permanent scarring on her legs. Unable to continue filming, the studio had to replace Hamilton's stunt double with yet another stunt double. When she returned to set, Margaret Hamilton was gravely serious about not doing any further scenes with fireworks. So when costuming asked her if she wanted her regular costume or a fireproof costume for the skywriting scene, she declined both and avoided the disaster that landed her first stunt double in the hospital. But she couldn't escape danger on that set, no matter how hard she tried. The iconic green makeup that made Hamilton's Wicked Witch so terrifying had its own terrifying aspects. The copper-based paint was so toxic that she could only consume liquids through a straw while in full makeup. To make matters worse, the green tint lingered on her skin for months after filming wrapped, leaching toxins into her body. Hamilton's lifestyle kept her in relatively good health well into her older age, but unlike a real witch, she couldn't live forever. 6 months before her passing, she moved into a nursing home in Salisbury, Connecticut, then succumbed to a heart attack on May 16th, 1985, at the age of 82. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos.